unbreakable as a Christmas tree. You light me up, then get rid of me. Power trash, only cold air to breathe. Coming back from work, you just walk past me. It's a shame you don't see that. I'm open and willing, but tell me what you want, I'll give you everything that you need. Oh, I'll sacrifice my sanity. I should stop, 'cause I know that I'm only hurting myself by thinking that I'm what you need. Oh, you're a classic case that needs a savior. I'm a certified enabler. You look for love like ads in the paper. All I do is walk towards danger. It's a shame I don't see that. You're broken, unfeeling, but tell me what you want, I'll give you everything that you need. Oh, I'll sacrifice my sanity. I should stop, 'cause I know that I'm only hurting myself by thinking that I'm what you need.
Molly Martin
How's it going?
in the flesh. Look at you.
Well, I found out that I have terrible lighting in my bedroom, so
I think it looks pretty great. A great compound. You can see a little bit of Jim Morrison. Is that Jim Morrison there in the back?
actually it is John Lennon's
John
New York
Lennon.
City photo, but I put Prince's face over it because that's more my speed.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Molly Martin, one of the most energetic and kick-ass rock and rollers in Nashville.
Wow.
Yeah, love it, love it. I mean, songs like Don't Come Calling Me, Molly, that is, and I kid you not, one of the most gorgeous songs of the past few years. That whole EP, dude, I'd encourage everyone and anyone to just check it out ASAP. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah. I just
Yeah.
casually put my arm over the back. I'm doing so great. But yeah, no, I have a new record on the way, so I'm excited for
Nice.
that.
Share with us a little bit about you were like a little rocker girl there in Philadelphia.
What it's like for me, or what it was
Yeah.
like for me.
Well, what was it like? Like, what do you remember?
Oh, I mean, growing up in the suburbs, it's not like incredibly exciting, but I mean, I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I mean, my history when it comes to playing music is kind of growing up playing rock music. I was one of those people that went to that program, School of Rock. So like my exposure to performance, it was never like playing in my bedroom. It was more like immediately being on the stage, figuring it out on stage, and getting my education through like classic rock and really classic kind of music. So
Right on. Is that why? Yeah, I think that explains so much, Molly, because like I feel like when you come on stage, every time you are loose as a goose. I mean, I never sensed any nervousness. You're bopping around with rock and roll, and you grab the audience by the palm of the hand, and you never let them go. It's like, is that where that confidence comes from, or like I feel it feels like you've been doing this forever, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like I think since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a performer. And I didn't know what that looked like. Like when I was a kid, I was like, I want to walk the red carpet. But I think I found that that outlet in music. So it's like you can combine performance with the art, with the songs, with the music. So the performance aspect has always been really important to me, and a place where I do feel so deeply connected in many different ways. Yeah, but it does juice me up and make me feel like alive to be on stage. And I mean, I still get nervous for stuff sometimes, but I feel like it's almost like the nervousness plays into the excitement of being on stage and being able to connect. And it just kind of like, it's like a shot of adrenaline that just, I don't even know what comes out of my mouth half the time when I'm on stage. Like, like none of it is planned. It just kind of happens. So I'm just kind of working off the energy of whatever's available at the moment. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, it's an experience to see you live. I'll put it to you that way. Like it's an experience.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. But yeah, let me ask you about your background really quickly because
Yeah.
I mean, for my audience that may not know, I mean, your dad was a very in-demand like bass player, right? Back in the 80s?
Yeah, he not yeah. He was in kind of like a New England famous type band in the 80s called the John Butcher Axis.
Mm,
And unless you're like in Boston, you probably wouldn't know them, but you might know them because actually a friend of mine found a record of theirs down in Alabama. Like they still have their records just going
sure.
about. But they toured with like the Jay Giles band and Def Leppard and Aerosmith back in the 80s and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I definitely grew up being fed that music. And I mean, I think that's definitely why I started playing bass. I started playing bass before anything, before singing or doing my own project. And it's because my dad said, there's always going to be a need for bass players.
Yeah.
You could be the guitar hero if you want to be, if that's what you want to do, but there's always going to be a need for bass players. So I was
Not
like,
wrong.
yeah. So I was like, I'll give it a try. And it's that kind of difference in playing bass versus being the front person. I like getting to do both. But yeah, my dad, and then he became a doctor. So it's like he was a bass
That's
player and a rock
crazy.
star, and then he just became a doctor. So
So do you have any siblings, Molly?
I have an older brother. Yeah.
Older brother. And what side of the apple did he turn out? The medicine, like, or like the artistic?
Well, that's what we always joke about. So my dad went to college for film,
Yeah.
and then he dropped out of school to be a rock star, and then he became a doctor. And my brother now does film and I do music, and we're like, I'm not becoming the doctor. So, and he's like, I'm not fucking becoming the doctor. So yeah, but my dad wouldn't want it to be that way. He's thrilled that we follow our passions, and I feel very lucky that my family is stoked about that for me. So
Yeah, my God, I'm so great that you're in Nashville. I mean, you're bringing some of that Philadelphia like spirit here. But yeah,
yeah.
and we love the Philadelphia scene. I mean, the War on Drugs is from there.
Yeah.
Like a really like really great bands, underrated music scene. But glad you're here. You've been here
Yeah.
what, 5 years, right?
Yep, been here 5 years.
How is that? How is that experience? So it's been kind of recent, but like how was that shift when you moved here? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, it's like it took me a while to get my foothold in the music scene here. I feel super lucky now. And I feel like that's why a lot of people I know are moving or like going to New York or LA. And I'm like, I do not feel tempted to go anywhere just because it really took me a while to like get in the scene. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. It's funny. I feel like the Philadelphia kind of attitude, it's I've learned that some Southern people really don't get it, and some people do, and some people find it endearing, but some people are very intimidated by it. But I try to just put it all on stage. So yeah, I mean,
No.
I love being in Nashville, and I love the scene here, and I think there's a lot of really great rock music. There's a lot of great female fronted music here. And I'm just lucky now that I feel like I've really found my lane and my community. So I'm just kind of leaning deeper into that.
Yeah, and the city loves you, Molly. I mean, like everyone, like whether it's friends of our show, like Hadley Canary, Brie Kennedy, whoever it is, the whole
Yeah.
community, like just you say the name Molly Martin, and everyone just like shines.
Oh, that's
So,
so sweet.
so that is a cool thing, like what you're saying. That like it's amazing that if you hug the city, it can kind of hug you right back, isn't it?
It's true. It's true. And man, like the world here only gets smaller and smaller. I think the more time you spend
Yeah,
here, everyone is like 2 degrees from separation from each other. It's
totally
like
true.
everybody knows everybody. And I really love that. I love that it's a small, tight-knit community. And yet there's so much success within the community. Like it's not just local people playing bars every weekend. It's like, I mean, like you said, Brie Kennedy, Hadley Canary, these are people that like, I really admire and are also just people that like come to your shows and are at the scene and like you just get to hang with. So it's
Yeah.
it's a great community here.
Absolutely, Molly.
Yeah.
And your songwriting, by the way, like just getting really into it the past couple of days on research. I mean, stuff like What You Need, or I don't know, Take My Pills. I mean, I can just like
Yeah.
bring out anyone out of like the rabbit hole. The songwriting is like, it really does shine. Even like with the amazing production and the rock and roll, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that like Nashville has helped you like evolve the songwriting, Molly?
For sure. I mean, I went to Belmont for songwriting, and like I don't even think I really kind of found my voice in my writing until I left college. And kind of was on my own and figured out what it is I really want to say. But the song has always been the number one focus for me. I think there's a lot of, and there, it always has been this way, where there's a lot of people that write for like the vibe or like the cool factor. And for me, it's like finding the music that fits the song or finding the vibe that fits the song, but it's always about the lyrical content, what you're trying to
Yeah.
say, for me at least. So yeah, I do feel like Nashville, in the way that it's a very song-centered, song-first town, has definitely helped me kind of like hone in on, it's like, okay, what am I trying to say then? What is important to me? What is authentic to me? And when I'm writing, I think about the fact that it's like, what would I actually say? I'm not putting on a character that's trying to be edgier or like cooler, you know. And it's like, and there's a lot of stuff in my songs that's just kind of like honest and not necessarily cool.
Yeah.
So
And that comes across, like that's a huge part of you, actually.
thanks.
Yeah. You can tell when it's phony. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
you
right.
just feel it. It's a feel thing.
Totally. And I've always felt that way. So I'm like, I can, I mean, it's very true. I can really only be myself. So yeah, that kind of permeates into everything.
Amazing. Well, I do want to ask you about like the new album in a second, but let me ask you about like a business entrepreneurship stuff that happened during the pandemic. Like
Okay.
obviously everyone, you know, picked up new hobbies, or like in 2020, people didn't know what to do. You started this business of like custom, like t-shirt, like making embroidery kind of thing, you know, with like,
Yeah.
like you had like Rick and Morty, Steve Buscemi, Julia Roberts randomly in there, and it became a thing.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what is the status of that?
Stalking. That's some good stalking on your part. Yeah, you know what? That really is truly a hobby of mine that like I go in and out of, in the way of like, sometimes I'll get really into it. I actually recently, let me see if I can pull this over. I recently, you can barely see it, but I put a red tiger on my Carhartt overalls. I embroidered this tiger. Wow, it's making
very
big.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah, that's just like a passion of mine that, quite honestly, it just made me some money in the pandemic. Like people would order t-shirts and I would just have tons of time, so I would embroider them whatever they wanted. But it's pretty cool because like you can just customize all your clothes to be whatever you want, and I make all kinds of weird shirts that are just like dumb bitch dad, you know, like it's fun. So
that's great. That's great,
yeah.
Molly.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your new album, right? Like as much or as little as you can or you want. Like
Yeah.
when would like the first single be coming on? Like what's the theme? Like tell us a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of timeline right now. You know, I have all the masters and it's all done. It's an 8-song album called Mary. So my birth name is actually Mary, but my name is, I've been called Molly since the day I was born. Like it makes no sense that my parents put Mary on my birth certificate. But it's this kind of dichotomy and duality I've lived with my whole life of like, you know, it's like holding two truths at the same time, which is like, I'm Mary and yet I'm Molly. Who is Mary? Mary's like this Catholic buttoned up like girl that I don't necessarily relate to, and yet it is also me. And who is Molly? And so it's like a lot of the songs have to do with kind of that push and pull within self. And so the imagery around it is kind of like the naughty nun. Like I'm like this kind of sacrosanct, like sacrilegious nun figure. So I'm just having fun with it. And I actually am getting my new t-shirts back tomorrow, and I'm really stoked about that. I had to see those designs for me, and yeah, I feel really excited about it. And it feels like it's like the people that I've played it to that have heard it, like I feel really honored that the overwhelming response has been, this just sounds like you, like this just feels so you. And I feel like that's the ultimate compliment to me, because that's all I'm looking for, is like authenticity, not putting on a character, not putting on you know, not changing my writing or my message for the sake of commerciality or you know, being digestible. Like I just feel really good that a lot of it feels angry, a lot of it feels edgy, a lot of it feels kind of shocking, and then tender, and it's a good mix of stuff. So I feel excited about it.
And Molly, that's what you are. Like I've done this for a long time, and like you are like such a unique, and I'm not like bullshitting here. Like you're such a complexly beautiful artist.
Thank you.
That like the more that like, you know, you're so layered, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that if you're really like digging into that, like the listeners will really like, oh my God, it's going to be beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that comes across. That's definitely what the album feels like to me. So.
Absolutely. So Molly, you've been so good with your time. Thank you. Let me ask you about 2021, because I guess by the time this airs, it's gonna be just ended or whatever. But like, 2020, everyone had like, a tough time. It was a rough year,
Yeah.
but 2021 was in some ways even more difficult, I think.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that, like, now that the year is pretty much over, that you're like, you know what, like I can do better in that regard. I can learn something from this year that I can evolve as a human going forward.
What can I do better? Going forward, I feel like consistency. I think consistency is really important. It's really
Yeah.
difficult in a world where you're not really knowing what you're walking into. You're not knowing if shows are going to get canceled. It's hard to plan for the future. I think just for me, my motto is just kind of like suiting up and showing up, staying consistently just keeping the gigs going and keeping, I feel proud of myself in the way that I have kept a lot of different avenues open. I play bass in this band Thelma and the Sleaze, and we're going to be doing a lot of touring in the next year and creating my album and touring with my band. So I feel hopeful for the next year, and I just think it's important for me to stay consistent and on top of it, and also being better about self-care and rest and recognizing the balance between productivity, creativity, and rest for me.
That's interesting.
When the
What
two
does that
get
what does
out-
that look for you, Molly? Like when you say self-care, like what does that mean for Molly Martin?
What that means for me is sticking to my routine, sticking to the things that make me feel grounded, which is I wake up and journal every morning 3 pages, walking, spending time with my dog, spending time alone, doing things that are creative, but not for the purpose of being productive, like embroidering, doing things that fuel me, make me feel grounded, a sigh out,
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I feel grounded and good in my body, in my space, I am giving myself availability to be creative. And I think a younger version of myself thought you just sit down and you just make shit happen and you just have to do it. And it's like this hard attitude about creation. And I realize now that creativity needs to be like nurtured through like giving yourself permission to be human. It's like, I can't just create if I'm not allowing myself to have my humanity. So it's
And in a way, like, look, what you do with your art is like you're a giver. You give love, you give connection. So it's almost like you're serving your audience and your fans and everybody. You're giving them more love by you loving yourself first.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's essentially my life story. So yeah, like leaning into self-care and self is a good sign that I'm actually in balance, because I am historically showing up for the rest of the world and easily can abandon myself. So
okay, well, we're not gonna let you do that because
I'm
you've got
gonna
to
do
rock.
that in the next year.
Hell no, you gotta rock this. You gotta continue rocking this city, Music City,
Yeah.
please. We need some Molly Martin, please.
Yeah.
So look, you've been awesome with your time, Molly. Thank you so much. You've said it all. I mean, what can I say? I mean, so much to do. I mean, that whole EP that you released a couple years ago, amazing. And I'm married next year. People get on the Molly Martin train. It's a good time to get on your train. It's early before you can grab a good seat before the bandwagon fills up. So
Exactly. Thank you. I appreciate
Molly,
it.
absolutely. I'll see you around town.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Bye.